The wind on the Wyoming plains moved like a restless spirit, whispering across the dry grass and singing through the wooden fences of the McConnell ranch. Out there, where the sky stretched wider than human courage, a young woman named Clara McConnell had grown up with her feet on the ground and her heart full of doubt. Everyone in town knew her father was one of the best horsebreakers in the county, but what they didn't know was that his daughter had never learned to ride. Not because she couldn't, but because she wouldn't. She had tried once as a child of 8, and the horse, a nervous chestnut mare, had thrown her hard into the dust. That fall didn't just bruise her bones, it scarred her confidence. Ever since that day, Clara preferred the fence to the saddle, the distance to the danger. But the frontier had a way of testing people, whether they wanted it or not. After her father passed away in a storm that took half the herd, Clara inherited what was left of the ranch and the debts that came with it. Men from the nearby town told her to sell, that a woman alone couldn't hold a spread that size. "It's not a woman's world out here," one of them said. Clara just looked at him, her blue eyes like ice under dawn, and replied softly, "It is now." Yet behind her quiet defiance lay the truth. She couldn't even ride a horse, and the ranch depended on horses. One evening, as the sun burned low over the hills, a black stallion appeared on the ridge, tall, wild, and untamed, with a white blaze on his forehead like a stroke of lightning. The locals had named him Shadowfire, the ghost of the plains, because no man had ever caught him. He had broken ropes, kicked through corrals, and vanished into the dusk time after time. But that evening he came down toward the McConnell ranch like he belonged there. Clara saw him from the corral, frozen in awe. He was beauty and danger made flesh, every movement pure strength and freedom. She didn't move, didn't breathe, afraid the spell would break. When the stallion stopped at the fence, the world seemed to hold still. His dark eyes met hers, and for a moment something ancient stirred, a strange trust between a broken girl and an untamed beast. Then he snorted, pawed the dirt, and galloped away into the open prairie. But that single moment changed everything. That night Clara couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring into the darkness, wondering why the wild horse had come to her. Maybe, she thought, it wasn't about taming him. Maybe it was about freeing something inside herself that had been chained since childhood. The next morning, she saddled a horse for the first time in years. Her hands trembled as she pulled the cinch tight, and she could feel the ghosts of her fear breathing down her neck. But she rode out anyway, slowly, uncertainly, past the broken fences and the whispering grass, following the tracks of the stallion that had looked her in the eyes. She didn't know if she was chasing him or herself. All she knew was that the wind no longer sounded like a warning. It sounded like a promise. Days turned into weeks, and Clara kept searching the valley for the black stallion. She learned to ride again, not gracefully, not without bruises, but with growing courage. Every fall taught her balance, every sunrise gave her purpose. The ranch began to breathe again. The cattle were managed, the fences repaired, and the spirit of her late father seemed to watch from the horizon. Yet the wild horse never returned. Locals laughed at her obsession. "He's not meant to be caught," said one old cowboy, shaking his head. But Clara wasn't trying to catch him anymore. She was trying to understand him, and maybe in some way understand herself. Then one morning, as the prairie mist curled over the grass like smoke, she heard a familiar sound, the thunder of hooves. She turned and saw him, Shadowfire, his coat glistening like polished coal under the dawn. He wasn't running this time. He was walking toward her, slow and cautious. Clara's heart pounded like a drum. She didn't move. She stood still, letting the distance close itself. The stallion's ears flicked, nostrils flaring, testing her scent. When he finally stopped, only a few feet away, the silence between them was alive. She lifted her hand, trembling, open, honest. The wild horse lowered his head and brushed his muzzle against her palm. In that instant, something unseen passed between them. Not control, not dominance, but trust. It was as if the wilderness itself had chosen her, recognizing in her the same spirit that refused to bow, break, or run. From that day on, Shadowfire stayed near the ranch. He never wore a saddle, never accepted a bridle, but he followed Clara wherever she rode. Together they became a living legend, the woman and the stallion who belonged to no one but each other. People came from towns miles away just to see the sight, a once fearful girl riding bareback across the plains on the wildest horse the West had ever seen. By the next spring, the ranch thrived again. The debts were gone, and the McConnell brand was respected across Wyoming. Clara would often ride out at sunset, the sky painted gold and crimson, Shadowfire beneath her like a storm tamed by grace. She never forgot the lesson he taught her, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to face it. The frontier didn't change her. She changed herself to meet the frontier. And as the wind swept over the land, she would sometimes whisper to the horizon, "Thank you for choosing me." Out here in the American frontier, legends aren't born, they're earned. Clara McConnell couldn't ride a horse until the wild stallion chose her. If you believe courage can be found in the unlikeliest hearts, then hit that subscribe button, join our frontier family, and saddle up for more untold stories of the Wild West.